Hello, I'm Sally Pinhey. I teach botanical art at Kingston Morwood College in Dorset and for the Horticultural Correspondence College. For this workshop on building tone, I have chosen the cup-shaped flower of the yellow tree peony. Always do a selection of rough sketches first, blocking in the tone so that you can see the contrasts. Then choose the best composition for your drawing with a fine pencil. The colours for your basic wash are Windsor yellow, cobalt blue and viridian green. Mix with a good quantity of water so that you have a good reservoir and won't run out halfway through. Wet each part of the leaf bit by bit, and to each damp area drop in some of your wash colour. Work fast if you're in a hot place because you don't want any hard lines. Now do the same to the flower area, using a solution of your Windsor yellow. You'll need all the strength you can get on this bright flower. If it looks as though you're going to get run back or a hard line, pick it up quickly with a clean damp brush. Remember that your shadow colours are your opposites on the colour wheel, also known as complementary colours. So violet is the opposite of yellow. As yellow is pale and violet is dark, you only need the tiniest speck of violet, but it will give you shadow without going muddy. When your first wash is dry, start to add some shadow colour to the undersides of the bowl of the petal. Using a clean damp brush, ease out any hard lines. You will notice that I'm moving my paper around. This is so that I'm always working into a curve which gives the comfiest angle for the hand and wrist and allows a clear vision of the point of the brush. Continue to use the same shadow colour in the yellow to build up the shadow on the concave side as the petals as well and show up the lighter edges. When the first wash of green is dry, you can start to build up the next layer. Run your brush tip close up to the vein, watching the point of it, so that you leave a pale line. It's much easier to leave a pale fine line by not painting it than it is by painting it, and the underneath colour of your first wash will be exactly right. Be careful not to put too much pigment on at once, as this will leave blotchy marks. If this happens, lift it off with a damp brush and dab it with a paper towel. This should work fine on a good quality paper. This paper is hot press and has a hard, shiny surface which doesn't absorb the paint too readily. Paint round the edges of the curled leaf so that the pale underside shows clearly. Again, your underneath wash might be sufficient tone for this. Now I'm tidying the edges with a sable brush double knot. Starting with a wash tends to give you rougher edges which need tidying up. Check that all your stems are joined and flow into the stem at the right places. For this I'm using my double nought brush with sable hair. It has a fine point, and you can see that the way I'm holding the paper I can always see what the point is doing, and it is close up to the veins, in places pushing the pigment into the vein valley. For this layer of leaf you could have added some ultramarine to your green mix to give it a bluer hue. You could also be working with a drier paint by now, but keep it fluid enough to flow out of the tip of your brush. For the flower centre, show the anthers at their freshest for clarity of detail, which shows best before the pollen has started to shed. Most cup-shaped flowers have the female stigma in the centre, surrounded by the male pollen-bearing anthers. Show both male and female parts, using all the contrast you can to make them clear. Paint round each anther with the darker colour of the background. The general rule is, for botanical painting, that if there are fewer than 12 anthers, you need to show them all individually. Once there are more than 12, it constitutes being numerous, and you don't have to show every one. In this case, the stigma is green. You could use the same bright fresh green that you've used on the stalks and the calyx. A bit more shadow going on the underside of the petal and into the bowl of the concavity. Some of that tone is caused by the coloration of the veins. Bear in mind that adding coloration detail will always add to the darkness of a flower, so you need to start off lighter to account for it. Now that you have sufficient tone on your green, you can start to lift small areas of tone between the veins where you want it a bit lighter. This will give it a quilted effect. On good paper, the pigment will push away to the edges of each small area. Push it with a damp brush. This can be done to a greater or lesser degree depending on the surface of the leaf. On a primrose leaf, for instance, the surface is deeply quilted and you can go quite a long way with this, but it will work best on a paper with a good hard surface. This particular leaf has a red streak down the centre of the stalk, which is an absolute gift. Don't miss it out. If you have a gift like that, it'll just make the painting. Veins also can make useful additional perspective information. The benefits of getting your shape of the leaf first is that you're much less likely to make a mistake with the shape of the vein if your leaf is a good shape and speaking to you. Here I'm marking up the contrast between the front and the back of the leaf, making sure that the points of the leaf are quite clear. At this point you may think you've just about finished, but usually after you think that is probably about another day's work to do. It all depends, of course, on what the ultimate purpose of this painting is and if it is going to be entered competitively for anything. Now treat the bud in much the same way as you did the flower, taking care not to miss any of the little details. There may be little pockets of shadow where the petals have been folded. Often these have one straight crisp edge and one edge which fades away. Keep the hard edge dry and crisp and use a damp brush to pull the shadow out so that it flows into the body tone of the bud. Paint between the veins on the bracts. This is the time for last adjustments, so make sure that everything shows that you want to show, everything is joined up where it wants to be joined up, and that your edges are clean and good. When you have done that, take out your pencil lines and you'll be surprised how much tidier it looks. If this kind of painting interests you and you have survived to the end of the video, then visit my website at sallypinhey.com.